Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites. Joining me in studio today is Rob Roper, who's a columnist and free market activist and author of Behind the Lines, which we'll have to chat about. Welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for having me.
We haven't been together. It's been a while. We were on radio. But you haven't been in the studio for quite a while, I don't think. What, I send you something for...
Yeah, you sent me something from 2018, I think. I think that was it. I'm like, wow, these
are old questions.
These are old questions. I got to go back and do some homework if I'm going to do this interview.
No, because I'm not clever enough to label things the way they should be labeled. But anyway, but I got right back to you.
You did.
So I had them. So anyway, Rob, could you spend a little time telling our viewers a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I've been involved in Vermont politics and policy since I moved here, really, in 1998. We moved here because my wife got a job at National Life.
Oh.
And I followed, trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And the only person I knew was somebody who you may have served with, Judy Livingston.
Oh, for sure.
From down in Manchester. She was the Justice of the Peace who married my wife and me.
I love it.
1996. So she was the only person, a Vermonter, that I knew when I moved here. I was like, Judy, what should I do? And she said, oh, you got to go to work for my friend Ruth Dwyer, who's running for governor. So I said, okay. And I worked for Ruth's campaign, and then I took a little time off when my kids were born, and did some work for the GOP, and then met the McClowerys and got involved in the Ethan Allen Institute, which has been the bulk of my career here in Vermont. I spent 9 years as president of the Ethan Allen Institute, which is the free market think tank of Vermont. And I stepped away from that about a little less than 3 years ago, and have been started Behind the Lines a little over 2 years ago.
That's great. Now it's associated with Substack. Is that what they call it? What is Substack? Because Meredith Angwin writes for Substack. What is Substack?
It's basically just sort of a platform that a bunch of journalists who were fed up with the editorial oversight that they were getting. It was, it was too woke. They weren't being allowed to write what they wanted to write, so they created a platform for journalists where you basically have your own page on Substack, and they handle all the emails for you. They create a website for you, and they help you monetize so you can have subscriptions and all that stuff. And it's a wonderful, wonderful platform. There's tons of writers on it, as you said. I'm on it, and Meredith Angwin, who writes about energy, she joined it. Art Wolf just joined it.
Oh, nice.
Former
so is
state
it
economist.
A subscription sort of thing? If I wanted to join, I pay a fee, and that's it?
Well, it depends on the writer. You can set your own parameters for subscriptions. Mine, all my content is free. I do have. You can subscribe, and it's the cheapest amount that they let. It's like $5 a month, or I forget, $50 a year or something like that. And that really does help me out, especially with my wife, because she's like, "Why you spend so much time writing all these things?" Like, well, these people are paying me to do it, so so I'm going to go write some more, honey. All my content, you can sign up. I have, most of my subscriptions are free. I do have a good cohort of people who pay, which I'm really grateful for.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I have to check it out myself. I'm trying to expand into doing some things on my own, just to butt in when I really need to, when I'm home and steam's coming out of my ears, and I'd like to write something.
And you can be like, I write generally 2 articles a week is what I try to do, but some people write very occasionally. Some people.
Now, can I back up a little bit and just ask you, Ethan Allen, is that still going? Is it still intact, or I was kind of...
Well, it's sort of in a holding pattern right now.
Okay.
The organization's still there. They're keeping up the 501c3. The board is still intact. But they don't have a president at present, and they're not really doing anything particularly active. I think Wendy Wilton.
I was going to ask you about her. I thought.
Yeah, Wendy Wilton, who's sort of the most active person in the group these days, still puts out something every now and again. And the organization sponsors Bill Sayers' radio show on Common Sense Radio on WDEV. Right. So that's their primary function right now.
Well, they're doing a good thing then.
Is doing Bill's show, and yes, that is a good thing. If they only exist for that purpose, it's worth it.
I love the way he introduces and he talks. He kills me. When he was on this show, I spent a few minutes doing to him what he says, and he's laughing. I love Bill. He's the best.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
He is great. So talk to us about Behind the Lines and how that got started the way of your career.
Yeah, well, the way my column started, Behind the Lines, was I had left the Ethan Allen Institute, but was still on the board as president. But I was still on the board, and at that time, and I was still writing a column, a monthly column. When I was president of the institute, I would write a monthly column that would go out to. I'd submit it to all the papers, and some of them would pick it up.
Yeah.
And I continued to do that for a while. And I was covering energy issues really closely back when I was president of the Ethan Allen Institute, back in 2020, when they started with the Global Warming Solutions Act, and then the Clean Heat Standard that followed that up. And then when we hit COVID in 2020, when all this was happening, one of the silver linings of that was all of the committee hearings went on Zoom.
Don't you love that?
And they're all now archived on.
Yep.
You can watch them live on
Yep.
YouTube, and then they're archived on YouTube forever. So I watched all of the Climate Council
Yep.
hearings and a lot of the committee hearings for the Senate Natural Resources and Energy and all that. And I'm watching all this stuff, and I would write my once-a-month column, trying to, in 750 words, encapsulate all the stuff that's going on. And I got a note from one of the papers, an editor who I know well, and I'd written like 3 in a row on. This was maybe the 3rd in a row on the I forget, it was the Global Warming Solutions Act or the Clean Heat Standard, but it was this. And he said, "You'd stop writing about this."
Enough is enough.
It's
right?
like, you've written 2 in a row. Just why don't you write about something else?
Right.
And I don't think that was trying to suppress information. I think he was trying to give me good advice and shake it up, talk about some other things. But I responded to him and I said, look, this is supposed to be economy transformational policy. It's going to cost billions of dollars. Right. It's going to change the kinds of cars we drive. It's going to change the way we heat our homes and businesses. It's going to basically turn our economy upside down. Don't you think that this is deserving of regular coverage? I mean, 2 articles in 2 months, 750 words or less each, and you say that's too much? Really, and this is what kind of caught me in my own snare, as I said, really what you should have is you need to have a dedicated reporter covering all of these things and writing about it constantly, because this is going to affect everything. Yep. And I never got a response to that email.
Interesting.
I never got we'll take it under consideration.
Yep.
Thanks for your thought.
No, but you're right.
anything
people
like that.
Don't understand. They don't.
And so anyway, after not getting that, it was a if not you then who moment. And I said, I just left my job. I need something. I can do this.
Right.
I'm in a position where I can do this now. And I started my Substack. With the help of my son, who knows how to set these things up.
Oh, don't you love the kids? I have grandchildren and my daughter to do that too, so it's like, help me. But this global warming and people don't understand it. Yeah. And I have Matt Coda on a lot, and because, and I'll talk to him offline, because every time somebody explains it to me, I walk away, and I can't explain it back to you. It's very confusing.
Matt is a terrific resource.
Yeah, isn't he? He's excellent. Well, he has a showbiz in his blood. He was a TV reporter.
That's right, he was.
So he has it in his blood. So you can just hand him the mic and let him talk. But you don't do too badly yourself, though, Mr. Roper.
Oh, thanks.
But it's something about this issue. If you're going to talk to me, you call me tomorrow and ask me a question. I know it's bad, but.
Well, I mean, at its core, I think Senator Dick McCormick, who's no longer serving, he stepped down after his last term, but he nailed the Clean Heat Standard. We said this is a Rube Goldberg carbon tax.
I read that.
And that encapsulates it perfectly. Basically, what they wanted to do with the Clean Heat Standard is they wanted to generate revenue to pay for programs that are done largely through Efficiency Vermont and some of the other, like Capstone, weatherization, subsidization of heat pumps, subsidization of heat pump hot water heaters, stuff like, there were like 11 categories of things like that. And they wanted money to do it. So they also didn't want to get in the political hot water of saying we're raising $1 billion in taxes in order to subsidize these programs.
Just never mind that.
So never mind that. So they
Yeah.
created this clean heat carbon credit system where...
There's where they lose me, the credits.
Yeah, and it's an excise tax.
Yep.
That's all the credit is an excise tax. And I mean, an excise tax is you have to pay a fee in order to sell a product, basically. And this was you have to buy a credit in order to sell a product. And the money to the credit is going to go to a non-government organization called the Default Delivery Agency, which was Efficiency Vermont. So basically what we have now for Efficiency Vermont is you have this electric efficiency charge that raises $50 million off of your Vermonters' electric bills. They give it to them, and they go out and ostensibly do wonderful things with it. So this would say, okay, you have to buy a credit, and the money from the credit is going to go to Efficiency Vermont, or whoever the DDA, the Default Delivery Agent was, but
Right.
it was going to be Efficiency Vermont,
right.
and they'll take the money and do it. But so they came up with this whole convoluted thing that was just a disaster. It was just an organizational disaster. The Public Utilities Commission was charged under Act 18 with setting this thing up. They were working on it for 1.5 years. They came back and said, do not do it.
Right.
Do not. This
Right.
is.
Thank
this
God
is,
they said that.
It's complicated. It's expensive. It's ripe for fraud and abuse, and it's extremely regressive. It's going to really hurt poor people the most.
Right.
So now we're at a point where they're kind of stuck because they passed the Global Warming Solutions Act in 2020. It says we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by so much by 2025. The date has passed.
Yep.
We missed it. The next one's
And
2030.
is that the one, I'm skipping ahead of my
Yeah.
notes here, but is that the one where we brilliantly said in law that
Yeah.
people can sue us?
Yep.
And they have already, right?
Yeah, we're already being sued by the Conservation Law
What,
Foundation.
I'm sorry, I don't want to use bad words for a respected, but what moron did, I mean, that is just, you don't do that.
Not moron, morons.
Seriously, who thought of that? It is, to allow people to sue us? That's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And what it does, I mean, what they'll say is, oh, well, anybody can sue us anyway. But what they did was they gave standing to anybody who can sue. It's true anybody can sue the state. They can try.
Right.
But then you go to court and the judge is going to say, well, if you've been harmed, you have to prove harm in order to bring suit. Nobody can prove that they were harmed by the Clean Heat Standard or the Global Warming Solutions Act not going into effect. In fact, they're going to be harmed if it goes into effect.
Right.
So it's kind of ironic. So they gave standing to anybody to sue if we don't meet these goals. The goals are impossible to meet. That was sort of obvious from the beginning, but now it's really obvious because we've passed the first thing. And the other thing is they actually haven't really done anything new to meet them. They tried the Clean Heat Standard. It blew up in their face.
Right.
They tried putting us into this thing called the Transportation Climate Initiative, which is basically a gasoline and diesel tax, similar to the home heating tax. That blew up. That was a multi-state thing, and all the other states said, this is insane. We're not doing this. And it evaporated, and they haven't come up with another plan. They're discussing one now, which is a cap and invest program.
Oh, I've heard that word, those words.
Yep. Tax and spend, cap and invest,
I know
tax
that.
and spend. That's what it
Exactly.
means. But basically, the state treasurer, Mike Pichak, just said, well, we looked at this, and if we join this cap and invest program with California and a Canadian province, Vancouver, I think it is.
Wonderful.
Is that the province? That's going to add 26 to 30 cents a gallon on gasoline immediately if we do that. So the other one that we can try is New York, which they're standing up a program, but New York hasn't even done it yet. New York is in the same position that we are, I think. They bit off more than they can chew with all these climate mandates, and now that they're finding, oh, this is what it costs, well, maybe we'll just not for now.
Well, and you and others had a group meeting at the State House the other day, which I heard was very, I couldn't go, I really wanted to go. You had a lot of people protesting.
We blew the doors off that place.
Good.
We not a whole lot of notice. It was maybe 2 weeks. We put out, a lot of credit goes to my friend Allison Despathi, who sort of said we should do this, and she's the one who did the bulk of the work, and I kind of helped in whatever way I could. But she deserves a lot of credit for that. But yeah, we put it out about 2 weeks before. Said repeal the Clean Heat Standard because we're coming up to crossover.
Right.
Everybody said we want to repeal. We're going to have a vote on whether or not to move forward with the clean heat standard. Well, they haven't had the vote. It's a pocket
Is that going to be
veto.
notwithstanding?
It's a pocket veto. The law still remains dormant unless they repeal it. So what they want to do is just not have a vote, let it remain dormant like a vampire.
Right.
So it'll come out.
Come out this year?
No, it'll come out the next time night descends on the state of Vermont and we get another Democratic supermajority and they have the votes to override a veto and they'll say, ha ha!
So it's just, so we don't have to worry about it this year?
We don't have to worry about it this year unless they repeal it. And Senator Terry Williams, a Republican from Rutland, did a wonderful thing as he went on the floor of the Senate and pulled a parliamentary maneuver to relieve the committee that had it under its jurisdiction from the bill and bring it to the floor for a full vote. Now, the Democrats killed that on a party line vote, 17-13, but it forced them to sort of deal with the issue and go on the record. So I'm hoping now that they did put, the Democrats did allow the clean heat repeal to be a part of another law that's a real stinker. So they're trying to use it as bait to get the bad thing passed.
Oh, yes, I read an article you wrote about that.
Yeah, and that came before the Senate Finance Committee, and it got destroyed, absolutely destroyed. I mean, it was the Ides of March almost. It was close, a couple days after the Ides of March, and it was like one knife after the other into the back of this bill. So I hope Terry will bring tomorrow his clean heat standard repeal bill back to the floor. Do it again. If they won't do it again.
Is the ability to sue still alive and well?
That's still alive and well because that's part of the Global Warming Solutions Act. That needs to be repealed as well. There are bills in both the House and the Senate. Terry Williams, again, has a bill that does that in the Senate.
Oh, good.
Mark Higley has a bill that does that in the House.
That's really not fair to us, the taxpayers, who will have to pay for this.
Yeah, we have to pay not only to be sued, we have to pay our attorney general to defend the case, but if we lose the case, which we will, because there's no way that we're ever going to meet these goals, we have to pay the defense or pay the plaintiffs' fees on top of that. And that's really what it is. It's a sue and settle provision for the groups that are going to bring these suits. Is that hey, just bring the suit. We'll lose and we'll give you money.
Can the Attorney General, and I should know this, and I apologize, I've only been working for state government for 20, can she just decide what actions to be part of? Or is there anybody like, I don't know, people that say, yes, we'd like you to join this action? Or can she just unilaterally join whatever action she feels she's been elected to defend?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on the role of the Attorney General.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. But she is, by law, by the Constitution, she has to defend the state and what its actions. So she actually did testify in favor of the Global Warming Solutions Act and the lawsuit provision in it and the Clean Heat Standard. But she's also in a position that if we get sued, she has to defend the state. She has to take the state's case. She can't. Right. She can't take the other side. But is she going to throw that fight?
Yeah, I don't understand because she's joined a lot of the don't want to get into national discussion, but she's joined a lot of those anti-Trump ones, and a lot of them they're going to lose, and we'll have to pay. And to what end? I don't know. So I'm just curious if I guess she can just do whatever unilaterally she hopes will get her reelected.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the national stuff, she has a lot more leeway than what she has with the state stuff.
Interesting, wonderful. Well, listen, I'm looking at those because I still want to talk more about the clean heat standard and the global warming, but I wanted to get into some of the other things that you're involved in. And you put out it was almost like Campaign for Vermont. You put out an article on the Vermont Daily Chronicle, and it says, what do we have to show for 25 years of democratic progressive control? And I use this for the headline for this show. How's it working out? Did you see that? That's a topic. How's it working out? And you talked in that article, and I'd like to go through each one of these, is education, healthcare, and energy, which, and except for housing, that's about the four, those are the four key things. So education, you wrote something, was it today or yesterday? Pre-K.
Oh, that was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I was like, was this man ever going to stop so I can finish my notes? So talk to us about pre-K and what they're up to now.
Well, just that article that you bring up, it was, I look back and we have a lot of problems in the
Yes,
state. I
we
mean,
do.
you mentioned the three. We have a problem with our education system
Right.
and our property tax system. We have a problem with health care and insurance. We have a problem with energy issues. You mentioned we've got an opioid crisis. We've got
right.
a housing crisis. So many things that we're dealing with, and the Republicans in the state have not been able to pass a law in over a quarter of a century here.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, so when you look at the problems that we're facing, they are the result of Democrat progressive policies that have been put in place. And that article that you mentioned, it goes back, the last time Republicans controlled the Senate was in 1994 or 1996, I can't remember, but one of those 2 years, 1996 I think it was. And the last time they held the House was for a 2-cycle period between like 2001 and January 2005. And it wasn't at the same time. And in order for any law to get passed, you basically have to get it through the House, you have to get it through the Senate, and you have to have a governor who's willing to sign it.
Right.
We haven't had that.
No.
So there's not been a Republican law passed. Now the Democrats, on the other hand, they have had control of the House and the Senate. They have had supermajorities for about 10 years over that quarter times where they could override Governor Douglas or Governor Scott during a period. They've had the trifecta of the House, the Senate, and the governor under Peter Shumlin and Howard Dean. So they've passed all this stuff.
Right.
You know, so Act 60 was their big thing that they passed, and now look what it's done to
surely not
education,
working.
property taxes,
Right.
and look what it's done to scores.
Right.
They have passed all the health care stuff. You know, we've been enduring for years. Health care is a human right. Well, the health care is a human right people have been controlling health care laws in this state. Now we have the highest by a ton
Right.
for individual health insurance costs in the
Right.
state, and we have an accessibility problem because all of the hospitals are foundering except for UVM.
Right. That's it's really scary, and I know on healthcare I was looking back because we've lived through Catamount, single payer, one care,
Yeah.
and I don't. What are we doing now? I don't even know. I feel so sorry for Blue Cross Blue Shield because they've always tried to kind of restructure themselves based on whatever new crazy idea we come up with, and
Yeah.
now they're
Yeah,
sort of floundering a little.
they've always sort of been in on it a little bit.
Right.
And you know, same thing with UVM. They sort of have always said, "Oh yeah, we can do this. We can do this."
Right.
And one of the things that has happened is under Howard Dean, we got rid of, or he instituted guaranteed issue and community rating, which sounds great. You know, guaranteed issue, if you have a pre-existing condition, you can't be denied care.
Right.
And community rating, whereas if you're really sick, you pay the same insurance rate as somebody who's really healthy.
Right.
And that sounds like it's a fair program, but what it does is it explodes costs,
Yeah.
and it drove all the competition out of the state
Right,
for
right.
insurance.
Right.
So now we've got extremely expensive
Right.
health insurance as a result, and we have people who are not willing to provide the care at the rate that we have, and that has to do with housing issues as well. So.
Have you been following the Green Mountain Care Board? Is that, as he shakes his, because they're going to have a new chair, are they not? Isn't, he was chair of, who am I thinking of? He didn't run this year. Oh, well, no, he was education, never mind, I was thinking about the board. But they had some new people on the Green Mountain Healthcare, which I
think they
thought
brought some
maybe was
people
going to
in.
turn it around a little bit.
Yeah, how's it working out?
It's like
I mean,
back
we've
to the title.
had the
Yeah, I know.
Green Mountain Care Board. Green Mountain Care Board was put in place to run Peter Shumlin's single payer healthcare
Right.
system. When single payer healthcare blew up, the law is still there.
Right.
The law is still on
Right.
the books saying we have this thing, and Green Mountain Care Board was created as part of that law. It's still there. They created this job for it,
Yeah.
and it's not doing it particularly well.
Right. Do you know they have 25 employees?
Yeah, it keeps growing.
It's like
and they've got a budget.
unbelievable.
I think the last time I looked at the budget, it's like a $2.6 million budget.
Wow.
For these, is it 5 or 6 people? I can't remember
Right.
how many there are. But I mean, and they're supposed to be controlling healthcare costs.
Yeah.
You stink. You're not good.
No.
And I think it's the wrong way to go about it. You get these independent boards that are trying
Not
to
answering to anybody. That's right.
they're not really answerable to anybody,
Yeah.
and it's not a free market. I mean, you introduced me as a free market advocate, and that's what I am. We really need to get back to some free market principles
Right.
when it applies to healthcare. We have more certificate of need requirements than any other state. That's a
Really?
block. A certificate of need is basically a permission slip from the government
Right.
in order to hang out a shingle, to do a lot of things. And that is an added cost, and it's a barrier to entry for people who want to provide services.
Yeah. And there's a shortage of doctors. There's
there's
a
a
shortage all over the place.
Shortage of doctors,
Yep.
a shortage of nurses.
Yep.
So why don't we just, first step, eliminate all that? And
Right.
if people want to come in and invest private capital into providing medical care for people that's not taxpayers subsidizing,
Right.
great. If it doesn't work out, if there's not a market for it, then they lose their money. They took that risk and they lost it.
What do they call that, concierge? Is that what you're thinking about?
Oh, no,
when,
no, no.
When
no.
you
Well,
pay,
I mean, there are concierge. I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
I know there's some down in Rutland.
Oh, concierge!
Yeah.
It's a great system. You
Yeah.
pay a set fee, and you have
A doctor.
a doctor
on
for
call.
on call 24/7,
Right.
and they have
Yeah.
we should do that.
I thought that was a great idea.
We should
if you
do
can
that
afford
for
it.
that. We should do that for primary care.
Yeah.
You know, figure out a publicly funded way to get primary care to people rather than
Right. That's good. So I want to go back to the pre-K because the article you wrote yesterday said Vermont pre-K program driving up property tax and harming kids. Could you explain that to me? Because I was involved in the pre-K bill back in the day, establishing pre-K.
Yeah, well, this is a tough one because it's popular with a lot of people. Parents, I guess, like to drop their kids off and go
Well,
do something else, be at work.
I was a single parent.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for daycare,
Yeah.
I'd have been.
What are you going to
What
do?
do you do?
But what I really object to with the way it's being handled is that there is I've been doing, this is the first issue that I really got involved in back in the mid-2000s.
Yep.
Early 2004, 2005, 2006, when they were passing, what was it, Act 62, which expanded publicly funded pre-K. And there were a lot of small mom and pop child care providers out there that had 6, 8 kids in them, and you drop your kid off, and that was a neighbor. Usually it was a mom of one of the kids, and everybody knew them.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife and I were part of one of those when our kids were little. We started a little pre-K with
Oh, cool.
5 other families, and
Yeah.
it was a Waldorf-based thing, and it was great. But everybody knew each other, and it was a community. It wasn't you're taking your kid to a center and dropping your kid off at a center
Right.
for 10 hours, and then leaving and doing all this stuff. So this has become what the objective is with Act 60. We've lost in our K-12 system. We've gone from like 106,000 kids to 72 or 73,000
Yep,
kids
right.
since 2000. What the public school bureaucracy said is we need more kids. We're taking over. We're going to instigate a hostile takeover of the 0 to 5 child cohort to make up our customer base, essentially. And they're using the power of a government monopoly to do it. And I think it's extremely expensive.
Yep.
It is ineffective, and it actually is, I think, harming kids, because what that article showed, there's a couple graphs in there, and there's
Yes,
a graph.
they were wonderful.
There's a graph that shows that the number of 3-year-olds who are in childcare has gone from less than 10%, going back to I think it's 2007, less than 10% to over 70% of 3-year-olds in childcare. And there's a lot of research out there that shows that when you take a child and you take them away from their parent like that, it creates a separation anxiety response. It releases something called cortisol in the brain. And the longer and more of these spikes you have of this chemical in your brain from separation anxiety, it creates lasting mental health issues.
Oh, wonderful.
For the child. And that's what they all say. I mean, you see the people who promote this say,
Right.
The 0 to 5 is a very important time in brain development for children. You're damn right it is.
Right.
And you know what the important thing in that first 5 years is? It is bonding with a parent.
Right.
That's the most important thing in that 5 years. And when you're taking that kid out and putting them in a thing with 15 other kids
Right, right.
and a stranger who's the teacher may be a young person that's never dealt with
Right,
kids. They've got a
right.
degree. That's what they're calling high quality education, is you have to have a degree, a BA. So you can get a 22-year-old that's an only child
Right.
that's never had anything, is more qualified than somebody who graduated high school but has had children of their own,
Right.
and raised them, and is now putting
Right,
those skills to
right.
use, bringing in a couple of neighbors' kids. Those are the ones that are, and that's why I think, so yes, as a single parent, yeah, I understand their problems, but the best thing for a kid is to be home with a parent. If the
agree.
next best thing is to be home with a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle,
Right.
or a relative who's going to be there.
Right.
What's better after that is that you got the neighbors. It's that small home
Right, right.
in-home childcare thing where they're friends. You've got
Right.
6 friends,
Right.
and it's not just that you're dropping them off and picking them up, and that's their only experience with that group. It's like you're spending weekend time with them. They're coming over for the cookout.
Right.
You're having sleepovers and play
Right.
dates and things like that.
Right.
So and they did a study back in 2019 of the Vermont's pre-K. They looked back and they found that there was actually a slight negative impact, statistically insignificant, but
Right.
negative for having somebody with a BA as opposed to
Interesting.
somebody that didn't
With
have
experience,
one.
right?
Yeah, somebody with experience. So that's my problem with it. I think I don't want to poo-poo people's need to have childcare in today's economy.
Right.
It is an important thing, but there's much better ways
The
to do
trouble
it.
is everything's so expensive, the husband and wife sometimes have to work just to keep food on the table, right?
I will throw out
Yeah.
a modest proposal here is we would be much better off paying a parent to stay home with their kid.
when was that discussed, Rob?
Bobby Starr brought it up.
Yes.
I wrote, because Bobby Starr brought it up, and I actually sent Bobby, a senator from the Northeast
Yeah.
Kingdom. He's now retired.
Yep.
I sent him a note. Hey, if you want to flesh this out, I'd be willing to do it with you. But I would say, make it an actual job, make it an actual state job where you have. It's not so we're going to give you a stipend to stay home and
Yeah,
smoke
right.
something and
Right.
watch
Get my
television
nails
and put
done.
the kid in
Yeah.
in the other room in a crib, but show up someplace and with your child for 10 hours a week,
Yeah.
and we'll pay you a living wage, $22 an hour to do it.
My daughter went to daycare when it was just really starting.
Yeah.
We had a professional daycare center in Marymount College. They used the facilities there. And then what happened was, because the schools weren't really keeping up with this, when she went to kindergarten, she was really disruptive. And I said to the teacher, she is bored out of her mind because she knows she's learned everything
Yeah.
in the last couple of years. So we gave her a job, and she was happy as whatever. They gave her a job to when we used to have blackboards where you actually had to wipe the chalk off, and whatever they do now. But anyway, they kept her busy, and she was fine. And they sort of had to readjust what they do, because the kids come into kindergarten knowing stuff that's what they're teaching.
Yeah.
And it was very strange to have, we had all these meetings with teachers about what to do with the curriculum. But I don't know, but I can see where it could mess kids up a little bit, because if they're not near their home or near somebody they know. That's terrible, because I voted for that bill. Sorry. Oh, my goodness. So where's my little notes here? There was a headline that I sort of had a little chuckle over, and the headline read, "Our government doesn't do things affordably." And I thought, no kidding. And I was laughing, and Bruce said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, nothing, I'm just laughing at something." And you wrote this after the governor's inaugural speech. Could you talk about that article and a story about Travis? I thought that I was cracking. I was really laughing out loud at home, and Bruce is wondering what I am laughing at.
Well, the Travis reference was, the governor brought that reference up in his
right.
speech. He mentioned a guy from Moortown whose name was Travis, who showed up at one of his town halls or something like that and said, if I get the quote, something close to it, he said, "I don't live here, I survive here."
Right.
And the governor described this guy, a blue-collar guy who's working 14 hours a day and something manual, and it was difficult, and he was having a difficult time getting by. And he said, "Make it work." for us.
That's right.
And that's what the governor said. Yeah, let's make it work for us. But Travis didn't say burn it down. He said make it better.
Right.
And I wish I knew who Travis was because
Get him on the show or something.
because I wonder if Travis meant burn it down because there's a lot of things that our government does that it's just not affordable and it's not the most efficient way to do something.
Right.
And we need to get. I think. I know I want to stay away from the national stuff, but I do think Donald Trump tapped into something with this Doge.
Right.
Saying, look, we're spending all this money, taping rats to fans and whatever.
I used to like the little miced shrimp on the treadmill.
Yeah.
Remember that from years ago? They were spending billions to track the miced shrimp on the treadmill. Why, I don't know. But
they're doing all this stuff, and it's not cost effective. And Vermont is not a cost effective state.
No.
We have, the organization Wallet Hub.
what's that?
They do stuff on financial, what states are most effective.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that they talk about is return on investment for tax dollars. And Vermont is like 43rd
Wow.
in
Aren't
their
we
ranking,
special?
which is not good. And a lot of money gets wasted. And a lot of it is, they throw money at a program and then never go back and see if it works.
Right.
The pre-K thing is an example. They've spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars
Right.
on pre-K. Nobody's gone back to say, hey, is this actually working for the kids?
Right.
The test scores are dropping. The mental health issues are going up. Is it actually doing what we want it to do?
Wow.
And so they never do that with really anything.
Nope.
So I think that Travis might actually want us to go back and
Start
burn some
over.
stuff down and make it
Right.
affordable, I've always been a big advocate for a taxpayer bill of rights, like the one they have in Colorado, which limits state spending to inflation plus population growth.
But you'd have to, just like Doge, they're just yanking it apart. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to do to start over again. Sybil McShane, she was the head of the library. And she went to the store and bought an over-the-counter, on-the-shelf system for a library. Basic, can be changed, can be fixed without any problems. She brought it over to the library and changed the library to fit the new system. And they've been running ever since on this new system because they didn't try to fit a system into the inefficient process they had. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here,
Yeah.
but they reversed the trend. They didn't buy something to fit what they were doing. They took what they were doing and fit it into a basic system, and it worked.
And it worked.
And it worked. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it doesn't take a nuclear scientist to change the programs, and there you go. But do we do that? No,
No.
we don't. It's really bad. But yet, Rob, we've tried how many times to start a new effective, efficient. I was on that original group that they had in the legislature. They put together a bunch of us to look at how to streamline programs and everything. But we had no support from the administration, and now they're trying to put one together again.
Well, you got to recognize one person's inefficiency is another person's job.
Yeah,
And there are constituencies out there.
and they hold on tight.
Oh, they do.
And I don't understand why, when you're talking about where are we, how's it working for you, some of these things are so clear to me, like just what you said, cost is going up in education, scores are going down. Hello?
Well,
Why don't they see that?
Well, we're looking. They do, but they do see it, I think. But like with what Governor Scott's trying to do right now with education finance reform and education delivery reform,
Right.
is you've got 52 supervisory unions
Right,
in a state of with 80,000 kids in the pre-K
right.
system, and you just don't need that many. And it's an expensive bureaucratic level, but that means that there are 52 supervisor. What are they called?
Supervisors.
Supervisors running the supervisory union.
Right.
Superintendents.
Making a lot of money.
Making a lot of money, and they have junior superintendents working under them, and they have this huge bureaucracy.
Right.
And the governor is saying, let's fire all of these people so we can return the taxpayer money to taxpayers. The taxpayers like that, but
No, they go
the
crazy.
bureaucrats do not.
Yeah.
And
I don't think-
they're fighting hard.
I don't think the 5 that he proposed would work, because I think they'll be too big. Campaign for Vermont, I don't. You've probably read.
I saw Ben's thing. It's great.
At 14,
it makes a lot more sense.
It centers the supervisory unions around the tech centers, which will help put some credibility to the tech centers and also help with the money flow back and forth from the schools to the tech center, and it'll be the center of 14. And I think what they have to do. When I worked for the Department of Ed as a deputy under David Walk, I sat down and I read the statutes for superintendents, principals. They have to sit down and decide what power they want these people to have. All it is money. In the commission, the secretary, the superintendents, and the principals. Somebody's got to sit and decide what you want those people to do and have the authority to do, because it's not in statute. It's really sad what they don't have, and they don't have the power to do, and nobody sat down and fixed it. And if they have the power of the legislature behind them, maybe they'll get some things done.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I wouldn't be a principal. If you read those things, you don't want to be a principal, because there's nothing. Now the governor's proposed a couple of pretty big changes, like they're responsible for the teachers, and a couple of other things that he proposed, which makes sense, but the statute's got to change. I went home and I went, oh, why would you want to do this? Anyway, so, I know, you have been very active in voting issues. And you put down that the 45 days of early voting is bad.
It's insane.
I'm starting to agree with you, but...
Yeah, no, I mean, 45 days of early voting.
Right.
Well, first of all, I'll speak directly to the voters who hate this stuff first, but it's the little things, but then it gets into some really bigger issues. But we say we don't like money in politics. When you have a 45 days of early voting, that means you have a 45-day get-out-the-vote operation that you have to pay for.
Right.
It's like, why am I getting all this junk mail from all these politicians so early?
Right.
Well, it's because the election's over 45 days before the actual election day. So it costs more money. The lawn signs are up, dotting the landscape way early, because you've got to get it out there earlier. You're getting more junk mail, and the junk mail has to land over 45 days. Well, it used to be you'd have a 72-hour get-out-the-vote program, right?
Right.
So the week before the election, you get a bunch of things, you look at them and say, oh, I don't like this person, I don't like what this person says, I'm going to vote for this person. Now that's got to stay top of mind for 45 days. So it means more money in politics. It means more politics for longer periods of time. Why do these campaigns take forever? Well, you've got a month and a half. And then you've got the primary before that, which has a 45-day pre-election for the primary, and you got to do that. So we've created this election cycle that is crazy long. So those are the things that I think a lot of people will see and say, yeah, I don't like that. But the real problem is that it opens a door for fraud. I mean, huge fraud. I mean, especially when we have mail-out ballots, as we do today. And nobody has to request the mail-out ballot. So you've got mail ballots going to people who no longer live here, don't vote. Dead. And 45 days gives cheaters a lot of time to organize and collect those ballots, fill them out, because we have no way to know. We have no way to know. If you get your neighbor's ballot in your mailbox by mistake, you can fill it out, send it in, sign their name to it, the name on the envelope, sign the name on the envelope, and mail it back in. There is no way anybody can detect that you've done that. Now, your neighbor may say, where's my ballot? I never got one. They say, oh, but you voted. And they say, well, I didn't vote. Then you sign an affidavit saying that you didn't vote, and you get to vote again.
But you don't know.
But because we have early vote counting too, that original ballot's already been counted. It's in there. There's no way to tease out that clearly fraudulent ballot. So there's a lot of problems with it. And you know, when you give people 45 days to organize and do that, I think it's a real problem. And it's an undetectable problem.
I get upset with what, old age homes, what do you call them, nursing homes and stuff. Because I think people are allowed to go in and collect 50. If I remember the discussion years ago, I was very upset with that they could go in and collect 50 ballots from residents. And I think a lot of those residents would probably be very susceptible to anything you might suggest.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No, the first campaign that I worked on, or second campaign I worked on, one of the workers, campaign volunteers, worked in the Alzheimer's wing of a nursing home.
Oh, really?
100% voting rate. 100%.
Oh, yes, because they were all alert and knowing what was going on, man.
Yeah, who do you want to vote for?
I'm sorry, that's not funny.
No, it's not.
I'm sorry.
It's not.
Oh, my God. Well, I know I remember who was pushing it on the floor, and I won't mention her name, but it used to be 25 or something, they moved it up to 50. I'm thinking, seriously, you can go in and get 50 people and get their signatures and bring them into the ballot? I mean, that's wrong.
Yeah.
50 people. I think in our town, we go with the clerk and go to the place and talk to the people. We don't collect them. But I love that they wanted to do 50. Wonderful. So anyway, but we should really kind of switch back to my favorite subject here. What was this about the environment? And Laura Sibilia, Vice Chair of House Committee on Environment and Energy. She kind of wrote a little thing about what we're being so lacking in the energy world in clean heat standards and all this stuff. So they're very passionate about wanting to have this stuff done, and I'm glad that it's going to be set loose, because Matt Cota said, he was giving some example. If you go to New Hampshire and buy a cylinder, I think I've got this right, and you come back, you have to register that cylinder and fill out forms about what you're going to use it for and all that stuff. Otherwise, you're not in compliance. I'm like, who wants to do that? Nobody will do that.
No, basically what Matt was describing is that the way that the Clean Heat Standard Law was written, whoever owns propane or fuel oil, when they cross the border for use in Vermont, has to register as a fuel dealer.
Right.
And so that means if you're a barbecue enthusiast and you live on the border and you get your propane tank filled up in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and you bring it back to Vermont, you're technically a fuel dealer. Now that was not the intent of the law.
I hope not.
The people who wrote the law didn't intend for that to be the case. It doesn't speak to their intent, it speaks to their incompetence in writing the law.
Right.
And that's why the Clean Heat Standard needs to be fully repealed and not just
I can
allowed to be
just see a
dormant.
barbecue expert going over there and coming back and, before we barbecue, I have to go register this?
I have to go register as a fuel dealer and buy a credit. And buy a credit for whatever the 20-gallon
Excellent. And they would certainly do that. I know they would all want to comply. So the bottom line is this thing's sort of silent for a while, and we don't have to worry about it.
Well, we have to worry about it because, as I said, it's like a vampire. It's dormant. And the next time they get an opportunity to bring it out, when the sun goes down, it will reappear
They come out.
and come to suck the blood out of your wallet.
Right.
Unless they repeal it. And I think there's a strong current out there calling for repeal. And I think we may actually get a win in this one. It's going to be tough because they're standing their ground.
Is there anything those who are listening watching can write to their legislature?
Call your senators, call your House members and say repeal the Clean Heat Standard.
Because this is going to cost us beaucoup bucks.
If it ever gets implemented, it's going to cost a lot. And it's for no benefit, for no real benefit to Vermonters.
That's great. And as part of the electric vehicle thing, where does that stand these days?
Oh,
now that we're burning Teslas, I'm wondering where.
That's in rule. That's the Clean Cars rule that they put in place as part of the climate action. Well, it's not really part of the climate action. The only reason they did that is because they didn't have to do anything. It was already in law that we're tied to California's emission standards. But it basically means that there will be no sale of new internal combustion engine cars in 2035, and they start ratcheting that down next year in 2026. I think that 35% of the cars have to be electric that are delivered to the dealers. And then it gets down to zero by 2035. And no,
No.
that's like triple the amount of electric car demand that currently exists, and people
It's
aren't
not
just
gonna
going to
happen.
all of a sudden want this. It's terrible.
You better quit burning them too while they're out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a little.
What does that do to the
just
car?
a little
What does that do to the
hypocritical.
carbon output of an electric vehicle when you set it on
Exactly.
fire?
Oh, good point. Anyway, so we have 7 minutes, and I wanted to, is there anything that we did not talk about what you're involved in that you would like to, before we skip to the other topic?
The other topic.
The other topic, which you sent me pictures of.
Yeah, no, I think we basically
do
covered
that?
it all. I
All
mean,
right.
go to the
Okay.
robertroper.substack.com if you want to read some more of these things.
Yeah, he's really excellent and writes, so I understand it. And it's not dumbing down, it's just you're just an excellent writer.
Oh, thank you.
May I tell you that? Some people are out there, and I have to read it more than once to get it to sink in, but I don't have to do that with you.
Well, I mean, that really is my objective, is to explain things to people in a really understandable, clear way. And that's what I try to do.
But I have to say, tell them, it is so confusing with the credits, and I mean, seriously. And will they ever, one thing that I was very worried about a couple of years ago was that they were going to start putting restrictions on what I burn my wood in my house in. And I think they were starting to get pretty gutsy to tell me what to burn my wood in. And I don't know if that's still out there, or they've given that up.
Regulating wood stoves?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Is
still
that out
part of
there?
the debate. I haven't seen anything in law or plan, but it's
they
part of
better cut that
discussion. Part of discussion.
I think people should be able to burn.
Stay warm
Stay
in a cold
warm,
state?
exactly. I mean, we have our wood delivered in the spring, and we burn it in the fall, and we have a very nice place to burn it, and there you go. So back away from my house, I just want to say. Anyway, the gentleman sitting in front of me here has got more than talent of writing and doing political analysis and all that stuff. He is an outstanding artist.
Oh, thanks.
And you surprised me. You sent me, we're going to show them as we're talking. We're going to put the pictures up. Everything I've seen that you've done has been a landscape sort of thing. And you sent me a picture of a person, a person, and I didn't know you did people. And I was very impressed. It surprised me.
Oh, thanks. I started doing figures because I wanted to paint my kids. When I got into the hobby years ago, my family, and one of the first things I did was a painting of my wife in her wedding dress. That's over our bed. That's over our bed in the house. But yeah, no, I paint just whatever I see and I like.
That's great.
And I love. I mean, that's what keeps me in Vermont with all the craziness that I write about. It's so darn beautiful.
That's great. Well, you live in the right place too. You're in Stowe.
It's gorgeous.
You know.
So the stuff that I sent you, I don't know what order they're going to put it up or what we're talking about, but there is a moon set over Mount Mansfield, which is one of the. I sent that one to you because it's actually for sale right now.
Oh, oh really? Are you allowed to divulge? I'm sure you can.
No, a friend of mine, Beth Gadbois, who just won her first election to select board in Stowe. She sells them in her store, the Body Lounge in Stowe,
nice.
on the Mountain Road, Route 108.
Nice.
So she's usually got half a dozen or so of my campuses in there, and that's the latest one that I've put up for sale. The other ones that I sent you is one that I really like. I did fairly recently, is of a barn in Londonderry.
Love that.
And I was actually driving down to do a talk about the clean heat standard to some folks in Londonderry, and I just came around this corner on a back road,
There it was.
and the sun it had rained, it had finished raining, and the sun came out, and it just caught the light just perfectly on this barn with an American flag hanging on it, and it was the fall colors behind it in the mountain. So I painted. I said I got to paint that sucker.
Do you stop and take pictures?
Yeah, I stopped my car on the side of the road.
Because you're not one
and
of
took a
those
picture
kind
of
of people that set up the easel on the side of the road and
I
do
do.
have you
I
done
do
that?
a little. I do a little bit of that. And actually, it's funny because some of my favorite paintings are plein air that I've done, and but most of them are terrible.
Right. Well, did you ever take lessons? I mean, when did this all start?
Well, I painted a lot. I had sort of a talent for it that people nurtured when I was young and in middle school and high school. And then when I got out of it in college, as you don't, and then I didn't for a long time, and I was a writer, and I would write and professionally. And I just wanted a hobby that took me away from writing.
Nice.
So when my kids were little and we went on vacation to Cape Cod, or Martha's Vineyard, I guess, one summer, and I just bought like a $20 Georgia. You've seen it, I'm sure, in the art stores.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah,
You get
right.
little tubes of paint,
Yeah,
and
right.
a little thing of white, and a canvas and a brush. And
Yeah, and so it started.
that's how I got back into it, doing oils. And I've always loved oil paintings. And it's
great.
like, I can either learn how to do this myself or earn a lot of money and buy them. And I think there's probably a better chance of the former than the latter. So,
I did too, paint and sips.
They're fun. That's fun.
That's fun. I did.
It's
They
fun.
weren't bad, but I couldn't do it. You just
no,
you're
anybody
fabulous,
can do
Rob.
it. Anybody can do it if they practice. And now, I mean, I've taken one class that my wife got me back in 2021 after it was like COVID, and it was an online class through the Pennsylvania Fine Arts.
Oh, nice.
But other than that, there's so many YouTube videos out there. You can watch people that
Really?
learn techniques. And
We used to watch
they
it.
get
We could,
inspired.
Mr. Nagy, his name was, and he'd be on TV. And when we were kids, we'd watch him, and he'd just do this and this, and next thing you know,
yeah.
you have this beautiful sunset, and everybody like, how does he do that?
Oh yeah, and Bob Ross. I mean,
Bob Ross, yes, right.
He was another one, and that's, Michael Alexander was another one who preceded Bob Ross. And I watched all those as a kid,
Yeah,
and I loved it. But now, I mean, you can, I mean, there's some phenomenal
So what's the?
techniques.
Can you say the price range, or you'd rather not have?
Yeah,
you
that
should-
Sunset is I think Beth is selling it for $700,
Oh,
which is reasonable
not-
for
yeah,
art.
that's not bad
That's
at
a
all.
24 by 12
Yep.
painting. So I don't do it to make a ton of money. I like people to have it. Some of the smaller ones are like 350.
yeah.
The other ones that I sent, yeah, there's a ballerina in there
Yeah,
that I did
was.
because
I was very surprised. I'd never seen you do that.
I did that one when my daughter was into ballet, all through high school. She was really good. So I titled that one "Tapping My Inner Degas."
It's great. It's good to have something to
Yeah.
get your mind off of this, because seriously, this state will drive you crazy.
And the other one I sent you, I thought was fun because it was the State House house floor.
Yes, right.
I did one painting of the house floor of
That was cool. That was cool.
fun. I always had it in my back of my head to do a series on the State House and do a bunch of, because I love just the structure
Yeah, right.
of it and the
Well,
grays
I was
and
going to say the colors in that are just gold and red, and maybe you should talk to our curator.
yeah.
Do a little selling.
Oh, maybe.
know,
They do put artwork up in the cafeteria.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do, and they do it in the governor's fifth floor reception area. They have paintings there with they'll invite people up to see the paintings.
There we
So-
go. I don't know. They keep throwing stuff on all like the stuff in the like Van Goghs and
Well, no,
Monets.
You should talk to our curator, because he would do something up at the governor's office. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
You have a reception, and you get to meet the artist. I used to go there all the time when I worked there. Besides, they had good food, so it was nice. So anyway, Rob Roper, thank you very much. Could you repeat your website so that we can find your?
Yeah, the name of the column is Behind the Lines, Rob Roper on Vermont Politics. So if you Google that, you can find it. But the direct URL is robertroper.substack.com.
Excellent, and it is worth the effort, believe me. He writes beautifully, and he tells it like it is. So thank you very much, Rob. Thanks for tuning in. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites.